Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education. Featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
The century mark has finally arrived. This is episode 100 with nationally known parenting expert Erika Katz. And welcome back, guys, to the Prepped and Polished podcast. This is Alexis Avila. I'm your host. This is our 100th podcast episode, so I'm really excited. I made it to the triple digits, and I can honestly say the podcast is growing and the information is flowing. So I promise you, I'll keep on going. We've had New York Times best-selling authors on here, world-renowned artists and educators, philanthropists, and just experts in the world of education. Just a bunch of inspirational go-getters who make the world a better place. Now, those are the conversations I love to have, and I think you need to hear. So let's keep on moving with this. Make sure you join our community on Facebook, Twitter. We're on YouTube, Instagram. Just type Prepped and Polished and you will find us. Go to preppedandpolished.com for more information, and while you're there, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. We do it each month, some tutoring tips. It's free, so check it out. Have a question or reaction during the podcast or after, just shoot me an email, radio@preppedandpolished.com, and I'll get back to you ASAP. Let's get to today's guest. Today's guest is Erika Katz, a parenting and beauty expert. Erika is the author of Bonding Over Beauty, a mother and daughter guide to self-esteem, confidence, and trust. And Erika uses her expertise to help moms bond with their tween and teen daughters. Erika can be seen as a guest on the Today Show, the Meredith Vieira Show, Hollywood Live, Inside Edition, and Telemundo. She discusses and gives seminars on parenting, social media, beauty, lifestyle, and how to keep your child safe. Erika is a graduate of Dartmouth College. On today's episode, number 100, Erika gives parenting tips on how to talk to your teens, how to relate to your teens, and how to help your teens make more friends. So let's get to today's guest. This is episode 100 with expert Erika Katz. Erika, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. It's so great to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for being on. Now, can you share with us a little bit about your background and maybe focus on a few pivotal moments that brings you here today as really an expert in the field of parenting and a writer and a speaker?
Well, basically, I noticed that when my daughter was about 8 or 9 years old, I was having trouble getting her to talk to me. So she'd go to school in the morning, come home and be like, "What's going on?" And I could tell something's wrong, but she wouldn't open up to me. So I noticed that when I would be brushing her hair or putting her hair in pigtails or braids or whatever, then she'd open up. Just like when a woman goes to her hairdresser, she says everything that's going on. I also noticed with my son, when I try to get him to do more than just grunt, because he's now 14, he just wouldn't do that. But then if I started talking about basketball, which is his interest, I could then get him talking and it would go into other places. So my concept of bonding over beauty, my concept of bonding with your kids is finding the way in. So it doesn't have to be beauty, it doesn't have to be basketball. It's what your kids are interested in. If your kids like chess, learn to play chess because that's how you get to talk to them. I knew nothing about basketball. My son loves basketball, so we go to games. And then that opens the conversation. He feels like I get him. I take an interest in what interests him, and then I can get the rest of the information. You can't just go to your kids and say, "Hey, I think you're doing something wrong," and constantly attacking them. You have to be a little more subtle. You have to engage them, and then they'll open up to you. And so for me, parenting is really not just about telling your kids what to do, but you're trying to raise kids who can be independent so they can go on and make good choices. You can't always control them because you're not there all the time.
Wow, that's amazing. And that kind of leads into my next question, which was if you could tell us a little bit about your Bonding Over Beauty series. a mother-daughter beauty guide to foster self-esteem, confidence, and trust. What motivated you to write this series, and did you always want to be a writer?
Well, actually, it's funny because I was in college and I wrote a book called Chick Chat, but it never got published. And it was really teaching girls in college how to take care of themselves because I saw they weren't shaving their legs or their hair was a mess or whatever. And I really wanted to help them because I saw them going on interviews for jobs and they didn't know how to put themselves together. And I thought, that's really important. Anyway, I put it aside when I had kids, and then when I saw my daughter and my son going through the tween years, puberty is really tough. I wanted to make sure that they always felt good about themselves because, look, I'm an academic. I went to Dartmouth. I'm really into studying. I'm really into developing your inner self. But I know if my hair doesn't look good, I don't necessarily feel as good as when it does. And I know if you don't feel good about the way you look, oftentimes you don't have the same self-confidence. And really, as parents, what we want to give our kids is self-confidence. So that means on the inside, but it also means on the outside, because in this world of selfies, everything is about pictures, and these kids are really obsessed about how they look. Now, we want to take the focus off of that a bit. So if your daughter's sitting in math class, you don't want her worried about that her legs aren't shaved. Right. If her legs are shaved, or you don't want her worrying that kids are going to make fun of her because she has hair above her lip. You want her to focus on math. So what I was trying to do is help these kids to feel good about themselves so they can focus on the more important things like school and friends and sports. And it's really about making them feel self-confident.
Wow. And does that apply to, both males and females? In terms
it's a great question because when I wrote Bonding Over Beauty, I was sort of focusing on my daughter. But, I have a son and he's almost 15. And, we don't bond over beauty, but I do help him with, whether it's his hair or his clothes or whatever. And it makes him feel good that I care about it. And I don't tell him, you look terrible, because that's a big mistake parents make. We don't love our kids' haircuts. We don't like when they turn it purple. We don't always like their clothes, but saying you look terrible is the worst thing you can do. Instead, you kind of have to embrace what they're trying to express and say, hey, you got your haircut. That looks really great. Try to build them up and make them feel good and make them feel that you're in their corner, not their friend, okay, because you still have to be their parent, but definitely in their corner, their cheerleader, that you're there to pump them up.
Yeah, and you really shed light on the positivity component, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure, when we talk about tips for parents with high schoolers who want to help their teens make friends. So before we get to that, what about, in high school it's exciting, but albeit a scary time. So how come you think it's easy for some to make friends in high school while others struggle?
Well, to begin with, you have to start with the personality, right? So some people are outgoing and some people are introverted. That's just life.
Definitely.
Some people are gifted physically. They're really great at sports and that makes you popular. And some kids are really good at computers. And I think part of the problem we're having now is because there's so much emphasis on being in front of your computer and your phone that it's easy to be introverted and it's easy to not socialize.
Interesting.
And I think even kids that might normally have been social, they don't really have to be. And we're seeing with adults too. So I think, of course there's a personality component. I think, if you're physically attractive, you might attract more people. That's sort of just the way it is. But I also think it's your smile. Do you smile all the time? Nobody wants to be with somebody who's grimacing in the corner, who's like, oh, I hate my life. They want to be with happy people. And I think that's your disposition. But I also think it's reflective of your home life. Are you coming from a positive place or a negative place? If you go home every day and your parents tell you you're stupid, or they ignore you, or they act like you're not there, or everything they have to say is negative, you're not going to have a positive outlook on the world. You're just not. So I think, it's nature, it's nurture, it's both. But I definitely think as parents, we can help them out. And I know when you'll hear your kids on the phone, or you'll see a text, or maybe you'll see a Instagram post and they'll tease someone, they'll make fun of somebody. That's negative. And so part of the way I tell parents to help their kids is, listen to them when they're talking to their friends. Are they always negative? Are they not being a supportive friend? Are they always cutting their friends down? That's something they shouldn't be doing. And you've got to teach them not to do that. but
That's
people
amazing.
do it. And so I think that's something we can talk to them about.
So, can you give us some tips that parents can take away today on how they can maybe help their teens make friends? What are some tips that come to your mind?
Well, one thing parents do, and they don't realize that they do it, is sometimes they turn their kid into a geek. Okay, so what does that mean? I remember a child in my son's class, the mother came in the morning, the first day of school, and said, "Can everybody be nice to my son? He's new." Like doing things like, yes, it really happened.
No.
Doing things like that is not nice. Forcing your child to wear clothes that you like but are not in style and not current is not a nice thing to do. Forcing them to have a haircut that was in style 30 years ago is just not okay. So what you want to do is help them be current, help them be cool, and understand their world, first of all, and not take away from it. I'm not saying supporting tattoos and 5 piercings. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that you need to know that sending them to school in a bow tie and a blazer when they go to a public school where there's no uniform, come on. You want to just be a little more cool. And so I think that can help. I also think,
that's great. Back
to the appearance again, helping them out. Like, for instance, my son needed braces. Instead of getting him braces, which he didn't want, I got him, the Invisalign Teen Clear aligners. So he was able to smile every day without having, those braces in the middle in his teeth. And he felt great about himself. And so when he was going through age 12, 13, 14, he was much more confident than his friends who had food stuck in their teeth and the braces. So, embrace modern things like that and help them to look and feel their best.
That's awesome and that reminds me, in high school, I wore those clear braces and I thought the white braces and I thought I was doing myself a favor, but then they turned kind of yellow. So for 2 years, I'm holding my mouth and not smiling. So that was a service that you did for your son.
And also, if your child has acne, don't just think, well, that's part of being a teenager. Take them to a dermatologist. Get them some good skincare products. You can get those baby wipes and put it in their backpack, and then after gym, they can sort of wipe their face with it to get the dirt and oil. Little things like that. If your daughter wants to wear makeup, there's a time and a place. I'm not saying she should wear red lipstick, but if she wants to wear a little lip gloss, it's really not a big deal. So I think that being current, I think also parents need to understand social media. I can't tell you how many parents said, "I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Instagram, I hate that stuff." Well, it's too bad. You need to learn it because you need to see if your child is being bullied on social media. If they post something inappropriate, that you know how to take it down, that you see it and you can teach them. Because I'll tell you, nothing makes a kid feel worse than when they post something and people make fun of them. So all those kind of things can help your kids make friends. Also, just invite them to have their friends over. Don't be like, "I don't want your friends at my house." You want them at your house. Give them snacks, especially boys. They like to eat. Okay. When they come in, have snacks for them because as they eat, they will talk. And then they'll think you're the cool mom, that you're there, you're going to give them pizza, you're going to give them brownies or cookies or whatever.
Right.
And you want your house to be the place everybody wants to come because that will also help your kids make friends.
Perfect. But not too many brownies because you don't want them to get all this acne. Now, what about stuff that you can do kids can do to make friends at school, like asking? I mean, a lot of kids are always thinking about me, but I know that you mentioned that it's important to ask questions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So I think a mistake that kids make, and especially I talk to a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, this meanness. They don't ask questions. So I'll sit there and I'll ask them 20 questions. They never ask me one question. Right. People want to be engaged. And in this world of selfies where I just want to take a picture of me, I don't think kids are learning that a really good way to make friends is to ask a question. Say, "Oh, what do you think of this? How do you like this? What do you like to do? What interests you?" Because when people talk about themselves, they like you. Just like when you talk about yourself, you like the person, right? You're always having a good time when you're talking about your favorite subject.
Absolutely.
Well, People have to learn to ask questions. And you know what? You don't learn by talking, you learn by listening. And that's a really important lesson that I think every parent can teach their kids. And a great way to do it is the dinner table, breakfast table. Anytime you can share a meal with your kids is a time for talking and listening. And you can teach it right there.
That's huge. And now what about like getting involved? Is that important? Like in high school?
How do you mean?
Well, like, I mean, all the kids have the commonality of going to classes, but there's also activities.
Right.
Is that a way to meet people?
Well, so I always tell parents, sign your kids up for what they like, not what you like. So for instance,
Okay.
I like to do ballet.
Right.
Ballet really wasn't my daughter's thing. If I only sign her up for ballet, she's not going to meet like-minded people. She happens to really like singing. I can't sing. So she does the a cappella group, but she has something in common with those girls. So if you were the star athlete on your football team, but your son plays chess, don't encourage him to do football. Encourage him to do chess, because that's where he's going to make friends with people who like to do what he likes to do. So you have to take yourself out of what you like and really understand what it is that makes your kid happy.
Love it. And can we go back to the positivity at home? Because it sounds like that plays a role in the kid's self-esteem and the way that he attracts friends. So how important is that component for parents to keep things positive?
Well, any parent of a teenager knows that is all you can do to not say, how could you have been so stupid, right? Which is the worst thing to say. And believe me, teens will push you to the limit that that's all you want to say. So what you have to do is not say that and say, I know that last week you did X, Y, Z, but maybe you could have done something else. What do you think you could have done better in that situation?
Nice.
How do you think you could have had a better outcome? And try to take it and make them answer the question. Because if you're constantly spitting information at your kids, eventually they tune out. So you want them to come to the conclusion on their own. Because remember, we're trying to raise independent adults, not adults that are living at home till they're 35. So they have to make decisions for themselves. They have to learn to control themselves instead of always being controlled. So by presenting the scenario and asking them to think about it and thinking of a better way, I think is much more productive than cutting them down for it. Because look, we all make mistakes. I mean, I did stupid things. We all do it.
Absolutely.
I still do it.
Really?
Once in a while.
Once in a while. Now, what if you're a kid? I don't want to say the word trapped, but you're kind of in a household that happens to be a little on the negative side. Any advice to maybe that kid who, without running away,
right. I see this a lot because when you're a parent of a teenager, their kids do run to your house if they feel that your house is more positive than theirs. And I have encountered this. And I have encountered kids who feel like they can't go home, they want to stay with me or things like that. So if you're a kid in that situation, if you can find a family that is more positive, if you can find a friend whose parents are willing to have you there a lot, who you can confide in and talk to, it's a really good thing. I mean, I'm thinking there's a few kids that I know, and I'm happy to talk to them, and I engage them, and you have to keep their confidence, which is difficult because, you have to make the decision sometimes. You can't keep their confidence if you think they're unsafe, if they're in a really bad situation. But if you think it's something that you can handle as a parent, then you talk to them and you try to make your house a safe haven. And that kid really needs to seek out families like that. Because unfortunately, if you're trapped in a bad situation, there's not a whole lot you can do to change your parents unless they want to change. But what you can do is you can seek out a teacher, a friend's parents, and use those people as a resource, or a family member, an uncle, an aunt. I really feel for these kids that get in that situation. But if they can reach out, there are people that are willing to listen and be there for them.
Why do I see like 20 kids after school at Erika's house? Just
yes, that is what happens. They all come to my house because I have the cookies and the brownies. But you know what? I like that. I'm happy to stock my shelves, because then I know who my kids are with. I can talk to them. And, I've actually averted some dangerous situations for other kids that they just happened to be yapping in my kitchen. And I said, hey, wait a minute, we got to think twice about this. And
they open
so,
up.
I don't know. I love teenagers. I do. I love this age. I think it's really fun, and I know it can be very difficult. But
well, that's an advantage. If your attitude is you love them and you're having a good time, it's half the battle. Now so bullying's still prevalent in high schools.
Bowling?
Bullying.
Oh, bullying. I thought you said bowling. I'm like, oh, nice. Okay, bullying.
Now, how has it changed since when we went to high school? And what are some tips for parents to help their teens deal with bullies?
You know, it's interesting. I think the word bullying is overused.
Okay.
I think everything is called bullying, and I don't think that that's right. I think there's bullying, and then there's, kids learning on how to speak to each other. I think sometimes a boy will tease a girl because he's interested, or she'll tease him because, and that's not bullying. Bullying happens when, I think it's happening a lot online with kids writing mean things about posts. What I tell parents and what I tell teens, if you're not sure, don't post it. Because if you don't post it, nobody's going to write anything. But I think kids feel compelled to keep up with their friends and post and post and post. If you post a picture of yourself in a bikini, even if you have the most beautiful picture ever, somebody's going to say something not so nice, and you're going to feel bad.
Right.
The key is when people post, they don't post for people to say mean things. They post because they're basically fishing for compliments. I mean, we want people to like what we're posting.
Right.
We don't want negativity. And so I actually tell my kids, try not to post too much. The more you post, the more you're open yourself up to it. And, because you don't want to become a victim of bullying. It's going to happen, and everyone's going to get bullied. But if you are constantly posting pictures of yourself in a state of undress, doing stupid things, you're going to get negativity. So you can avert some of that by not putting yourself out there so much.
That's a really good lesson. Like, it's not like avoid it altogether, but just in moderation.
No, but don't post a picture of yourself in bathing suits. Right. Just don't. Like, that picture, no matter how great you think you look, somebody's going to write something mean. So just don't make yourself vulnerable. Don't make yourself a victim. Try to protect yourself. Look, you're going to get to school, and there's always that kid who is weak, and people pick on them, and people aren't nice to them. And when you're that kid, it's pretty bad. But you know what? As parents, we are parents of these bullies. As parents, we can say, hey, that's not okay. If you see that happening, step up. I've actually taught my son, if you see somebody being bullied, you stand up. Because my son happens to be pretty popular, and I know the kids will listen to them.
Yeah.
To him. So if you have a popular kid, you as a parent, I feel, have a responsibility to tell your kid, popularity is a gift. It's something not everybody has, and it's very special. But when you have that, you have an obligation to make sure that you can help those that don't have that. So I think instilling that in your kids can help bullying stop. These campaigns, they're all well and good, but when you as a parent are called by another parent and say your kid is bullying, you can't say, oh, not my kid. You've got to face it head on.
Wow, there's so many lessons from that we can go on for an hour, but one thing that came to my mind is if you put yourself out there in a bikini, you put yourself out there, it kind of goes against what we're saying about how to make more friends. You want to ask more questions than just say, hey, here I am. Nobody likes that. So it's a little bit more like if you're going to do some posts on Facebook, maybe pose something on someone else. It doesn't have to be about, look at me. Right? I want compliments.
Well, I think posting by nature about you. I don't really post that much about other people, but one thing I do on Facebook is when any of my friends post something that they've done, they've written a book, they've, had a baby, they're getting honored or whatever. I'm an adult, so that's what I see. I always try to share and and make positive comments on my friends' accomplishments.
Exactly.
And if you want to make friends, the best way to do it is to say, hey, you look really great.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a great picture of you. Love that picture. Love what you're doing with this. And people will like you if you say nice things. A compliment goes a long way. My mother always said you get more bees with honey.
Nice.
And it's true.
It's true. And wow. So, okay. So what projects are you working on now? Any new books in the works? What's going on with
here's
you?
what I'm doing. So I just wrote, if you go online and you go to unbraceteenconfidence.com, I actually hooked up with Invisalign because my son had such a good experience using the Invisalign Teen Clear aligners that I said, hey, can we work together? And I wrote a guide for parents, and it's broken up into two parts, into tweens and teens. And it's all about how you handle the pressures of social media when they're a tween versus a teen, how you handle peer pressure when they're a tween versus a teen. So depending on what age your child is, you can click on it. It's a free guide, and I think it's really helpful, and I'm very proud of it. And I've been on this campaign to really try to help parents boost their kids' self-confidence, because if you give them the gift of self-confidence, I mean, what better gift can you give them, really? Because they'll take that through life.
That's huge. All right, last question. So the bridge from teenage going into young adulthood is going to be an exciting time. So to any teen listening to you today, any kind of tidbits you can maybe give him before he goes off into that independence?
Yeah, actually, I think we get brainwashed. You have to go to college, you have to get a job, you have to do all this, but that's all they tell us. And nobody says to you, hey, what's your passion? And I always tell young people when they're applying to college especially, you're not going to like every school. That's not true. Wherever you go won't be perfect. But you want to go to the place that's going to prepare you for your next step. So if you could have any job in the world, if you could do anything in the world, what would it be? And the answer to that question should be your goal, and everything you do should be to get to that goal. Try not to listen to all these people saying, hey, I want you to be this and I want you to be that. You need to be who you are, because you can't compete in areas that you're not strong. You can compete in the thing that you're good at. So figure out what it is you're good at, what it is you want for your life, and write it down, put it on a bulletin board, and then brainstorm, how am I going to get there? What should I do to get there? And that's really what I tell a lot of kids, because you need to fulfill your life. You can't be mom 2.0. You have to be you. And as parents, the most difficult thing was to realize that my daughter doesn't have the problems I had. She has her own set. She doesn't like what I like. She's her own person. She can't be Erika 2.0, nor do I want her to be. I want her to be your own person. So try to be your own person and not be so influenced by the people around you.
Awesome. And before we let you go, is there anything else you'd like to share or throw out there and working on?
Also, I was just going to say, be an individual. You don't have to wear the same things everybody else wears. You don't have to do what everybody else does. You have to be the best you can be. And that's what's going to make you shine in life, not following the crowd. Because the crowd isn't always right. I'll tell you, when people told me, oh, nobody's going to buy your book, nobody's going to like this. And you know what? I believed in my book. I believed in my message. And I didn't care what they said. And you've got to be able to have a tough skin through negativity. You have to ignore it. And the more negative people are, the more you have to push through. And that has to propel you forward as opposed to hold you back.
Perfect. On that note, Erika, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Really appreciate
Thank
your time.
Thank you so much.
And this wraps up our show with nationally known parenting expert Erika Katz. Go to www.erikakatz.com. I'm going to spell it for you. It's ERIKAKATZ.com to learn more about Erika's inspirational tips and to get a copy of her book, Bonding Over Beauty. I hope you enjoyed the episode 100. And here's to another 100 episodes of growing and learning from the world's most influential people and educators. Episode 101 is coming soon, our next tutoring tips episode on how to get a 5 on your AP chemistry exam. Thank you for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.